Okay, coach. Nervous. I know. We're good. All right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening for the Somers Town Board regular meeting here, starting at 7:05, Thursday, March 9th, 2023. Before we get started here tonight, I would like to take a few minutes to recognize the Somers High School football team for their exceptional 2022 season and a New York State Class A state championship. In only his second year, Anthony DiMatteo delivered us a state championship here to the town of Somers. So, Anthony, great job, man.
Actually, Anthony, what's your 2-year record?
Somebody told me I wasn't keeping track.
You weren't keeping track. Okay.
25-1.
25-1.
25-1.
Pretty good
What
start.
do you do now, Anthony? What do you do now after this? You know, it's like,
Whoa, we have guys like Nikki coming back. We're gonna have to take a shot at it again. So,
Good job.
Nikki.
Good job, Nikki.
I want to be a fly on the wall when you have the conversation with your dad.
those are usually pretty.
Which is
And so Coach DiMatteo brought the captains along with him today. So I'd just like to acknowledge the seniors. Jake Polito was a All-State and New York State Defensive Player of the Year. And Jake will be going to the United States Naval Academy. We also have senior Matt Fitzsimons, All-State and New York State Co-Offensive Player of the Year. And I believe, Matt, you were going to Wesleyan University.
That's great.
All right. We have senior Luke Kennedy is here with us today, All-State linebacker. And correct me if I'm wrong, you were headed to Hamilton?
Oh, wow.
Yes. And then we have junior all-conference, Nikki Greco is here tonight with us as well. Junior.
And you're headed back to the high school. Unless he gets recruited with a new NIL, you know.
No, none of that. It is our kids' business.
So the town of Somers would like to give Coach DiMatteo here a proclamation and for the team as well.
Why don't you guys come and stand up
Yeah, you
so
guys
the
can come
camera
up.
can see you?
Yep. We can come down there as well.
Yeah, you want
Yeah, you want to?
I got it.
You got this?
Which one you want?
Well, let me read this. You guys want to turn around? We'll turn around a little bit.
Let you guys get on camera. We're on it enough.
I've been on camera more than I think anybody.
That's the point.
Yeah, helmets.
I'll read the proclamation here. Whereas the Somers High School boys varsity football team, the Somers Tuskers, has represented our school and town with distinction and honor for many years. And whereas the town of Somers is exceptionally proud of the boys Somers Tuskers football team won the 2022 New York State Class A football championship. And whereas the Somers community congratulates the team on this well-earned recognition under the leadership of Coach Anthony DiMatteo and assistant coaches Mike Skavolowski, Michael Cleary, Doug Carpenter, Doug Packard, Aaron Simmons, Jerry Keevans, Tony DiMatteo, Vinny Dipolino, Evans Lassiter, with the enthusiasm of the team captains Jake Polito, Matt Fitzsimons, Luke Kennedy, and Nikki Greco. And whereas, in the order to officially recognize and applaud these bright young student athletes for their dedication, hard work, and efforts in the championship football team of excellence in Somers. Now, therefore, be it resolved that on behalf of the entire town board of the town of Somers, I, Robert Serrano, supervisor of the town of Somers, do hereby proclaim Saturday, March 11th, 2023 at Somers High School Boys Varsity Football Team Day in the town of Somers. Thank you. And we got the guys a little something there
Good for next year.
for you guys. It's just a little memento, a little token of our appreciation as well. For something. And so hopefully you have it, you like it, but it's something I want to give you. So once again, I'll see you guys on Saturday for the parade.
Can't wait.
And
Thank you so
then
much for the support.
thank you guys for coming here and joining us for the meeting. So
Thank you.
Let's do a group shot.
Yeah.
Good luck, all right?
We'll see you next year.
Yeah.
Hey, before I go, I just want to say, I voted for Matt as one of the top 5 players this past week in Westchester in the coaches voting. So be there. The basketball, because he's great in basketball. Great.
So we're not over there. We're not done yet with some of the other things. We're going to start with our Pledge of Allegiance, but I'm going to have some of our scouts come up here and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And I believe tonight we have is that James? Is that James Morello, Joseph Dwyer, Michael Cardillo, Benny Silk, Jake Peterson, Christian, and Logan Labasso. Is that everybody here?
Miss anybody?
Did I miss anybody? And RJ Peterson. So if you guys want to come up here to the front and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, that would be great.
Flag's right over here, guys, right in front of you, over this side.
Just start.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And gentlemen, I'll pick one of you. Why don't you just give a quick, I know why you're here, as I've told you, my son was a Eagle Scout in Troop 228 about 3 years ago, but can you tell people why you're here?
So we are here today to earn a requirement for the citizenship and the community merit badge, which is required to become an Eagle Scout.
And you're all on the trail to Eagle.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I will say 228, and the other troop in town is 336. Yep. We turn out Eagle Scouts, which if you've ever gone to an Eagle Scout ceremony, is pretty prestigious. I've gone through the getting my son into college, and if you are an Eagle Scout, it counts for a lot. They put those applications in a separate pile. So good luck to all of you. I'm sure you're all going to do great. I'm going to be with you, I think, at a meeting in April to talk to you a little bit. And I look forward to it. I haven't been to a meeting in a little while. I used to go to all of them. So good luck. Congratulations. Thanks for staying. Don't feel like you have to stay the whole meeting.
All right. Thank you, guys. All righty.
I think they have to stay part of it.
All right. Patty, can you start us with roll call?
Councilman William G. Faulkner.
Here.
Councilman Richard D. Quincy.
Here.
Councilman Anthony J. Sirico.
Here.
Councilman Thomas A. Garrity Jr.
Here.
Supervisor Rod Scarano.
Here. Okay. I'd like to make a motion to open up public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, tonight on our public hearing, the proposed local law to amend 170-3 definitions and add transient basis to the code of the town of Somers. Transient basis, the rental or leasing of a room, rooms, or home for dwelling, lodging, or sleeping by the owner of the premises for the period of 30 consecutive days or less, with a portion of the day counting as a full calendar year.
Day.
Day. Calendar day. Sorry, day. Thank you. That would be a long day. That'd be a long calendar day.
Is that the new language?
That's a new language.
This is the new
That is the new language. One of the things that we have is we have our planning board made some recommendations. We'd like what they wrote, and we'd like to move that into it if that's okay. So,
Publishing and posting
oh,
before you open the public hearing, before you go into the public hearing. So
okay.
talk about it. Just don't forget that.
A public posting.
Mhm.
Go ahead, you want to?
No, you did talk about budget, but you want to go publishing posting.
Well, you guys talk about it and then you
All
open
right.
the vote.
But just for the scouts, I mean, what's going on here is we're changing a law. And once we change a law, we have to have a public hearing. And so it's got to go through a process. So we turn it out to public, they can comment on the details of the law. In this case, they're going to change the rental laws in terms of this town, and we're setting some limitations. 60 days, 30 days.
30 days. 30 days. We've
Okay.
done some of our due diligence and looked at other communities that are out there. I think Manhattan also has a 30 days as well. But many other communities out there have 30 days. We figured that would be a good start.
So getting here, we've had many discussions on this. You're seeing that where we're at right now. The issue at hand is Airbnbs. Try to reduce, transient rentals, people coming in for a quick weekend, a quick day. We're saying that's really not what the community wants to support. If you have a rental over 30 days, that makes sense. All right. And there's a lot of different views on this. I mean, some believe that it should be shorter. Some people want it even longer. But, at this point, I think this is what we've seen be implemented in a lot of different towns. And it's also legal, constitutionally legal to do it and structure it in this format. And we've done this with the attorneys. So.
Anybody else have any things?
No, I'll wait to hear from the public.
Okay. Patty, let me see. Patty, we have any?
We haven't had any informal feedback, have we? Or is anyone on YouTube calling in on this about that?
All right.
Okay.
So we
Not
have
yet.
some.
I'm sure we will.
Yeah, we're gonna have some people in the audience.
We're
Yeah.
gonna have some people in the audience. What do you want to do with publishing postings first?
Sure. It was published in the Somers Record and posted on the town clerk's bulletin board on February 23rd.
Is anybody here to discuss this matter?
Anybody from the public?
Yep. Anybody from the public? If you'd like to come up to the podium, please?
Please state your name and address when you speak. Good.
Justin Ciccone, 11 Summit Circle, the neighborhood up the hill
Sure.
that's in question. I am the president of the homeowners association up that direction. I think I'd first like to say thank you for actually finally doing something. Rob, I said this to you a while ago, make a decision so that we can live with it one way or another. I do think that the language, I came here to discuss the language. It sounds like it was updated. I think one of the things about in the first posting was owner of a lodging business. So I'm happy to see that removed. I think that kind of left a loophole in it. I'm assuming it'll be updated in.
Yes, it'll be up to the correct.
Cool. I'd also like to go on record saying I still think 30 days is too short, but I also think periodicity needs to be a consideration as we look at this. If somebody's still renting for a period of, or for 12 consecutive months in 30-day blocks, I still don't think that's the right amount or the appropriate amount. So I've said it before, I think in the past. I know that Heritage Hills now has obviously got a year-long moratorium on what that rental period is. And there's clearly a time period for a registered sex offender when they enter a certain area. And this kind of falls below that threshold still. But I'll end by saying the action's still better than no action. So I do appreciate you guys finally doing something about it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, like all things, when you look for a solution, you look for you test it out, and and we'll obviously take a look at that. Is this a wise length of time? Is it too short, too long? So there is empirical evidence that will come back, and we'll rely on your feedback to provide some of that evidence as we determine whether or not it was the bestest thing. But that's what we're trying to do.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Anybody else here?
All right.
You can come up to the podium, yep.
You do. We can't hear you if you don't.
World wants to know.
No, you did.
So I have a question. When you do this, how long do you take before you maybe revisit it? Because I agree, the 30 days that's not good at all. 30 days is a very short rental, really. And we lived in a neighborhood, we came to a neighborhood that we are not having people go in and out all the time. So when can we go back and relook at this? How long does that take?
No, it's all right.
It would be a practical matter. In other words, if in 3 years someone said, hey, look, this happened, or in 3 months,
Okay, so
you have to look at what are the effect of the law, just like any law. You don't want to change every law capriciously. Well, we'll just see what happened and we'll change it again. That would be a good way to run anything. But on the other hand, we don't quite know. And as you know better than we do, this is an issue that towns and cities across the United States are now dealing with and trying to find what's the best way to handle it. So I think that the answer is a little bit based upon whatever the experiences of the people there and around town, how does it affect other people and what the feedback we get is. And I don't think you can set a time limit on it. So a reasonable amount of time could be several months. A reasonable amount of time might be a year or 2 years.
but the board is open to revisiting it.
Like every law.
Yep.
Every law is open.
Get your name.
Vision.
My name is Lisa Maloney. I live at 25 Lake.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Lisa, we'll get feedback from the rest of the town and see how things, progress from here, because this is not the only area that we've had situations like this, but your situation may be a little bit different than the others. So we tried to hit the sweet spot here, and we tried to do it in a legal fashion in Heritage Hills, as well as in your area. You have a homeowners association. It's within your auspices to essentially, as a private community, you could be much, much more restrictive if you like within the community, but it would be handled under, I guess, private law, civil law, if it was done under the.
Well, they'd have to get buy-in from the neighborhood, but whatever their bylaws.
Right. So you have bylaws and so
Change
on.
their,
So you're not completely without recourse, but we're trying to support you.
Yeah.
Vic, I know you had something.
Yes.
My name is Vic Canistra. I live at 2 Lake Drive. I'm also on the zoning board, as I'm sure many of you know.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you, Supervisor and members of the board, for considering this issue. I think it is very important. In our residential neighborhood, we have over 50 private residences, and we've never really had this kind of a situation where we've had 20, 30 people at a home having crazy parties. And where these 2 Airbnbs or VRBOs are, there are young families with young children on either side, and there's parties are going on until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I also relayed to the board the incident that happened on our property. I can go over that again. Okay, you remember that incident?
A picture of it. Visual.
Okay, so this type of behavior isn't appropriate. So I'm very glad that you're instituting a 30-day requirement or minimum requirement. I also would like to have it longer if possible.
What would you say is reasonable, Vic, or the people? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I mean, these short-term rentals of 30 days, I think it's certainly going to help the problem. But, to me, I think it should be like 6 months. I think it should be a long enough period. If somebody wants to rent for the summer, they would rent for, a long period of time. I don't really see in practicality where a lot of people only rent for 30 days or 60 days. I think it's by far the exception. And maybe if someone wanted to do that, they might have to apply for a permit or get approval as to why they would want a 30 or 60-day rental. But I think it should be longer. And a lot of communities are experiencing this problem. I know New York City is, and a lot of other areas. So it's really becoming a problem. This is just not the appropriate place for this type of activity. It's not the Jersey Shore. It's not a vacation community. People bought these homes in these residential neighborhoods. This is where we're raising our families. And we don't know who these people are coming into the neighborhoods. There's concern when there's a new group there every weekend. And a lot of the groups are young kids. And there have been groups that have come up from the city, 20, 30 people coming up, and we're on a lake, and they have a big house, and they're like, wow, this is great. We can come up and have a party. And, it's just not what we're built for.
That was 2 summers ago, correct?
What happened to us on our property was 2 summers ago. Yes.
How was last summer?
I think it was better. I think there has been some improvement, but right now, those 2 houses on our lake are still being advertised. And I understand they're getting high daily rents for them. So there's certainly a monetary incentive. So I think there has been some improvement, but I don't know. I would talk to the neighbors next door. I'm across the lake, so I certainly have witnessed the activity. But
Vic, are the rentals like weekend rentals advertising? Is that what it's advertised as now?
there's no limit on the rentals. They're not advertising it minimum 30 days or anything like that.
Okay.
And, these are public properties. You can go on VRBO, Airbnb, and you can see them there.
I guess my question is that you said each weekend a different group. And so wouldn't 30 days then limit that every weekend a different group?
I think it definitely would help. Yes.
So I look at this as a stake in the ground. It'd be interesting to see how this evolves in this
Right.
specific situation. We were also in COVID as well, and so there's an aberration there.
Right.
We hear you and we empathize.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah, to the woman's point before, I mean, we always could, if it becomes one of those things where it's abused, then we can always look back at the law again.
Right. Absolutely. And I appreciate you looking at this issue because I think it is very important.
All right, great.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. I think there was another person who had want to make a comment? No? Okay. So then I will make a motion to close public hearing. And Patty, let's move that to April 20th. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Closes out the public hearing. I'd like to make a motion to open up public comment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Anybody here for public comment?
Right.
We've never met her before.
Yeah.
She's
If
brand
you could
new.
please come up and
So scouts, everything that's spoken about is on the agenda, but when we open it up to public comment, anybody can bring up any issue they like, and they have 3 minutes to express themselves.
And I'm a repeat offender, so.
That's all right.
My name's Robin Anderson, 9 Cypress Lane.
Speak a little closer to the microphone, please.
Sure. Just some follow-up from last month. I know there was a lot of talk about pedestrian crosswalks. Roland at the last meeting said that crosswalks have to tie in to sidewalks and can't just have a crosswalk that ends on the side of the road. And then later mentioned another town he represents trying to get a crosswalk across a span of state road and was unable to do that. I'm sure you guys are all aware
Because it did not tie in.
two sidewalks, right? So there's a crosswalk in front of SMS on Route 202, goes from one side of the road to the other. There are no sidewalks there. I'm not sure.
Well, the question I'd have is whether or not there are exceptions to that and schools are. And
I don't know, but I have a.
Yeah, I
question.
understand. We went out, you sent that to us and we
I
looked.
did. So if that is actually the law, we're violating it and you may be leaving yourself in jeopardy there.
And to my knowledge, it's a DOT regulation. I don't know if it's actually a statute.
Okay, so if we could have an exception at the school, there could be an exception other places.
Well, it was a DOT
Presumably.
exception. Isn't that on state roads and not town roads?
They only control state.
That's what I'm
Right.
saying. So they would have no effect on a town road, or we're then obligated to state
Well,
regulations for town?
I think your insurance companies would probably tell you that in this instance, you want to adhere to DOT regulations. And you don't want to create sidewalks that they wouldn't create. It's a safety issue.
Right.
So I did try and look up the regulation that limited the crosswalks. I could not find anything. So if somebody in this group could get back to us on where exactly that is, because I could not find it anywhere.
I know we're allowed to put some sort of signage on the road, but not an actual crosswalk. That we have spoke about doing that, putting some sort of.
There's actual signage on Cypress Lane. It says pedestrian crossing on one side, and the other side it says crosswalk. But there's nothing painted on the road. There are signs up. At any rate, I could not find anything, and I'm a nurse, right? I'm not an expert on these laws, but I couldn't find anything. So if somebody could point us to the statute or whatever that says you can't do these crosswalks unless they're sidewalks, I would be appreciative. I can't find anything. The other thing I did find, though, was a local law 9-2000 that says pedestrian crosswalk signs shall be installed as follows, the signs. On the easterly side of Cypress Lane, approximately 100 feet north of Lakeview Drive, and those signs are there. And then on the westerly side of Cypress Lane, approximately 400 feet north of Lakeview Drive, which I believe is at the community center. There's no signs there. It says children, slow, whatever, but there are no signs. It's a local law. It's on our website. It's there. So if somebody were to get injured there, the town would be liable if they don't have the appropriate signage up. Is that correct?
Potentially.
Yeah. So I sent that to you gentlemen also, the law.
And my question was, nowhere in there does it say the date of origination of that ordinance, does it?
Added 12/14/2000.
Oh, 2000.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that far back.
No,
Oh,
well,
okay.
they could.
Well, well, you know, it's certain.
Yeah.
It's all relative.
Some of us is a while back.
How you be quiet down.
He's been preoccupied.
So
He's been preoccupied.
this also calls for several crosswalk signage in Greenbrier. I don't know if those are still there or not, but that's part of that. There are two there also. So if somebody could follow up on that and let us know, or let me know the best way to get back in touch with you so that we can get answers on this. As far as the stop signs, I know Nick said he recommended stop signs at Bridge Lane, 2 of them. That's that dead end and that very sharp curve where there's been multiple accidents. He also said he recommended a 3-way stop sign at Cypress and Lakeview, which is right by the lake. His memo to the town only recommended 1. He said, after looking at all of the following locations and speaking with Chief Linkletter, I only support the addition of the 2 signs for the Bridge Lane. My reasoning for this is that there has been a history of accidents with residential property damage. He did not recommend the one at Cypress and Lakeview. And then there was a lot of discussion about up at Rockies, about a crosswalk, about how dangerous it is there. There's all kinds of cars all over the place. There's a bus stop. Really in the morning, there's a lot going on there. School buses, people coming in and out of the deli. And we did request a stop sign there, and that was also not recommended. So if we can't have crosswalks and we can't have a stop sign, what are we doing to protect the kids there and everybody shopping there? And then again, the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. I know you said it would be added to the public hearings, and I just wanted to follow up on that. You were going to figure out the details.
Say again.
You said you were going to figure out the details about where the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit might be appropriate, where it might not be. Was it 11:25 in the last town board meeting? That's when you guys talked about it. So I'm just wondering if.
You sure you're a nurse?
I am, in fact. So I'm not sure, has anything that happened with that? When can we expect something to happen?
Can I?
Go ahead.
to-
Go ahead.
And I'm not supposed to speak.
I know. but-
Can I speak to Nick's recommendation? Because Nick's recommendation came first, then Chief Linkletter's came. And Nick verbally agreed with Chief.
All right, I just see what was in the town hall minutes and that's, I'm reading his email. So that has been changed and the one at Lakeview and Cypress, what about up by Rockies? Was there any change up there?
That's the 2 recommendations,
Okay.
which, okay.
All right.
We're gonna place those on the April agenda
Right.
to schedule public hearings for May.
Okay, and you had said at the last meeting, you were going to see about adding the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, at least in the lake communities was what was kind of talked about, but.
I remember that.
That's,
Yeah. So that'll be, it's a public hearing in April also?
How do we do
Public hearing is not gonna be-
that? How do we say we would do that?
Well,
It'll be on the agenda in
Okay.
April,
probably be in May.
and there'll be a
And-
public hearing will be-
you need recommendations from at least your chief of police.
Okay.
And then you could schedule a public hearing if you support the recommendation.
You're talking specifically about the 25 miles.
The 20
Yeah, okay.
Are you saying that the recommendation of the chief of police is required by law, or it's just good practice for us to do
No, I
that?
think it goes to a lot of different aspects. One is what would be the exact boundaries of these reduced speed limits? How's he going to go about enforcing a reduced speed limit? There's a lot of signage that has to be ordered because this is a relatively new state law that you can even have a 25-mile-an-hour
Right.
speed limit,
Right.
except in a school zone where that's existed for a while.
Right.
So there are certain things that the chief has to weigh in on.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. And who will I be following up with on the other issues? With Rob?
Supervisor.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
The supervisor.
Call your office. Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
That's why he's super.
Can I do it right now?
Mhm.
All right, so I'm gonna make a motion to,
He's got a, we have another comment.
make a motion to refer it out for the 25-mile-an-hour speed signs to our police chief and fire, correct?
Police, highway and fire.
Police, highway and fire.
Yep.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right, so moved.
You look familiar.
Yeah, I've been here before. This is on a different subject. On one of the prior meetings, I was sitting down just listening. The Reynolds Trail project outside that they're going to build, they're planning, they suggested it, they came here, they showed a lot of
The Reynolds, say again?
Reynolds Trail housing project.
Housing.
Trail side estates.
Trail side.
Where's that located? They want to put it behind Stop and Shop.
Oh, yeah, yep.
Okay, and the way they put it, they didn't impress me with a lot of the stuff that they had. They weren't ready for your questions. And what concerns me is that there's already so many housing developments that they and others have built already around Shenorock and in the town of Somers that I don't want it becoming something like, I got nothing against Yonkers, but I don't want it becoming another Yonkers where you don't have any more trees.
Nothing against Yonkers, though.
Yeah, you don't have any more trees around. And second, the most important one is that this is going to create even more problems for Shenorock, because I'm at 9 Cypress Shenorock. So
Problems in traffic.
with traffic,
Yes.
everybody else already cuts through there. Doesn't matter who it is. Heritage Hills, the preserves, anybody around there just goes boom, 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 boom. So we brought this up to you before. And now if you plan to go ahead with this, I just want you to be diligent and really scrutinize the project, because they only have, from what I understood the last time, one way to get in, one way to get out.
Now, you might be talking about, there's two different projects.
Well, I'm talking about the one behind Stop and Shop that they said specifically they were going to put it somewhere next to the wetlands.
Yeah, it's behind it. They have more than one way to get out.
Yeah. But anyway, they're still going to come through. So we're just tying up and making things even worse. So they're going to have to come up with a better solution. And also they talked about the freebie they threw in, the
Community center?
The community center. And you guys brought up some valid points. Who's going to man it? Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? Or it's for the whole community. I don't see the whole community going all the way over there. I really don't. So it's just going to be one space. And then you talk about, then you're going to talk about the fire department, more police, because the more projects that are built, you're going to need more services. So which means more taxes, or somehow money's going to have to be coming from somewhere. So that's just my concern right there.
Do we get his name?
I know.
Philippe Alvarez.
Philippe Alvarez. That's it.
Yeah.
Philippe, that what you saw is essentially as a concept, right?
Mhm.
So they're moving along. I think you bring up valid points. And, that's where we're at. I mean, you're making public comments, so you're of record. But if you'd like to write a letter or just kind of get your thoughts together, I'd be happy to.
I mean, you guys brought up a lot of valid points to them, and I just didn't see them with the right answers. They started a lot. They came in with some flimsy, diagrams, whatever, how they're going to build this stuff. I think that they have to do better if they're going to take over that parcel. And environmental studies, who's going to do it? You guys, them. Is it going to be in favor for them? I mean, in my opinion, wetlands are wetlands, and no matter how close or far you're going to go, it's going to definitely affect it. So with that, I bid you adieu.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it. Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too, bud.
Anybody else here? Public comment?
Good evening, Supervisor and board members. My name is Graham Cooper. I live at 8 Wilson Road. I've been a resident of Somers for 37 years, I think. Speaking of the Boy Scouts, my 3 boys went through Somers schools. They were all members of 228. They were all Eagle Scouts. I happen to have been a assistant scoutmaster in the Don Long days. I don't know if anyone knew Don Long.
Don Long.
Yeah, for about 8 years. So It's a great program and you'll do well. And Mr. Garrity, speaking to you, my oldest went to Dartmouth and my twins went to Villanova and graduated. So anyway.
That's great.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Good thing college is cheap.
Yeah. Well, it was a lot of money. Anyways, I'm here regarding the Willowwood Gun Club. Is anyone on the board familiar with what's going on in Mayapack?
I heard, but
That's
you
the one
tell
behind
us
like Heritage Hills?
they want to
Yes.
expand it or something of that nature.
No, they are expanding.
They are expanding.
They did an illegal expansion.
Did you say illegal?
Illegal.
Illegal.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how much time or you want to put into this. It's a long story. And I seem
You
to
have
be,
3 minutes to get it out on the table.
well, I seem to be the only person that's sounding the alarm.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything.
Yeah. Okay. So Willowwood is a gun club that started in 1955. They've been shooting in that area since then. They shoot in directly into the New York DEC wetlands, which is the cardinal sin for not doing. There's one rule for a gun club: don't shoot into water. And they do. They've been doing it for 55 years. By my estimation, they probably have approximately 1 million pounds of lead into the hillside that they don't own. It was an easement they purchased from a guy named Goldfine, who was smart enough to get them to sign an easement with the express purpose of not having to clean up their shooting waste. And the guy who owns the property now, a guy named Fromm, is bound by that by deed restrictions, which is
That
interesting.
gun club's in Putnam though, isn't it? Right?
Yes,
Yes,
Putnam
correct.
in our town, right?
It's in the town of Carmel. Okay. So they're expanding right now. They bought a piece of land. They went up, got logging permits. With the logging permits, they were told, you're not going to be shooting up there, right? No. But in later meetings, they admitted that they did the logging so they could clear for the roads for the sport clay course, which is what I'm here to talk about. And some other stuff that affects the Somers Land Trust. So they did the expansion. They set up a course and they started shooting. And that was in 2018. When they did that, my property borders right up against the land trust property, which used to be Heritage Hills. And I recorded it. 425 shots in 15 minutes. The estimation is 8,400 shots per round. Now, that's not per day. That's per round. Because each 84 people on the course, 100 rounds per person, 8,400. The noise was ungodly. I measured up to 90 dB using, my iPad, a calibrated meter, so on and so forth. So while it may not be a scientific, measurement, it certainly is indicative of a huge problem. They have an ordinance up there, 104, which is a sound ordinance, which is not in the town of Somers. And I've asked them to enforce it. Anyways, I'm going to move away from the sound.
Who did you ask to enforce it?
What's that?
Who did you ask to enforce it?
The town of Carmel, and they say that they will. I've spent more time at their meetings than I have here. This is the first meeting I've come to here. Anyways, the major problem with this is the lead. That's the big problem. The second problem of it is they shoot into Heritage Hills and they shoot into the Somers Land Trust. And they've been doing it for years into the land trust property. Now, I've spoken to Mike about it. He's well aware of it. I've spoken to John Milligan from Heritage Hills Management about it. Nobody's doing anything. Nobody's putting up a cease and desist. They are going to be responsible for the lead that's shot into Westchester County. They are going to be held responsible to clean it up, and they're going to be responsible to get something called an RCRA permit from the EPA. You cannot shoot hazardous material onto the ground and not pick it up. There's a timeline. In other words, if you can prove that there's no intent to pick it up, it's now a hazardous material. This is a big issue. This is going directly into the 30-acre wetland that borders Heritage Hills and goes into Mayapack. I was talking to the DEC today about it. I called the EPA. This is a big, big issue, and the town has to do something. The town has to go to the town of Carmel. This is my opinion, and tell them, stop. You cannot shoot into Westchester County. You can't shoot into our town. I don't know why Heritage Hills has done nothing. I have no idea. I have no idea why Somers Land Trust has done nothing. All they have to do is go to their lawyers and, petition the town and say, don't do this anymore. It's not allowed.
You said you spoke to the EPA.
I called them today.
Yeah, have they provided any guidance?
Not
or
yet.
Comments?
DEC has.
So
They just went, just for reference, if you like. I didn't want to bring a presentation. You do the two foldouts. The one fold out there is the representative of the shot wall zones that were in the last design. I didn't have time to update it, but that shows the property lines and the extent of a shot wall zone, which is 900 feet.
so the top is north, the bottom is south. That's Heritage Hills down at the bottom of that?
Yes, that's the three areas that are shooting
And that's
into the
the,
Somers Land Trust and into Heritage.
And where's your property here?
I'm off to the corner. Yeah, over there, exactly. And if you go to the next one, you'll see their plan. And that shows the current shot wall zones. And the crazy part about it, I showed the shot wall zones for the course. They're all within the shot, they're literally going to be shooting at each other in the course. It's the wildest thing I've ever seen, like Keystone Cop.
so Roland, how do we process this? How do we handle this? I mean, this is public comment.
That's something.
Yeah.
Well, I think at first blush, a call from the supervisor to the normal supervisor,
Right.
alerting him of citizen concern. And that you're gonna have your staff investigate it. And if it's true, you expect them to cease, and I assume it is true, that they will cease and desist.
The email that I sent you in May is in there. In the front.
This is Carmel. So a town board is processing this in Carmel.
It's in front of the planning board right now.
Planning board?
It's in front of the planning board, open for public comment on the 22nd of March.
So.
And I will be there.
So it hasn't gotten up to their, to their town board. I mean, they're under the same rules as we are.
They've been in front of the environmental review board,
You would think.
the planning board, the zoning board, 2 Article 78s. Back to the planning board, back to the planning
They had
board,
two
back to the
Article
planning board.
78s.
Who brought this, the 78s?
You know George Calganini? I think you probably know her, right? George is the president of that club.
So he brought them against the Carmel Planning Board?
Yeah, due to parking spaces.
Was he successful?
Yes. And they tried to send it back up. Then they remanded it back to the zoning board. They had no choice but to approve the parking.
And just from a
Zoning
standpoint, just so you know, the technology is a great thing. The land trust has filed cease and desist letters, and they have reached out to the planning board. I don't know.
See that? I mean, you just looked it up.
No, somebody just texted me that. So I don't know where it stands right now, but so they have tried to take action. I'm not saying it's done.
No,
anything.
and I appreciate that. The problem for me has been the whole thing. I've contacted Mr. Scarano in the past. I don't know whether he read the emails or not. I mean, I'm sure you get a million emails like me. But, it was probably about 100 pages of information that I sent you. So to review it would definitely take time. So I thought maybe if I come here and I present it directly to the board, that it'll have more of an impact and more of an understanding. But you're looking at a severe loss of property values. If this thing opens at 8,400 shots per round, and they're pointed right at Heritage Hills. My house, when the property values go down, what am I going to do? I'm going to come down and greet my taxes.
What are they shooting at?
They shoot sport clays and they shoot trap.
So they're shooting at stuff in the air. So
Yeah,
they
it's
miss.
long.
Which
It's
I
not
bet
like
they
it's
do quite a few times.
When they shoot,
extreme range.
they shoot 1 1/8 ounce of lead with every shot.
Yeah.
And I'm not anti-gun. I know all about guns and I shoot and everything else. That's not the problem. The problem is if you shoot, you have to do it responsibly, and they're not doing that.
Well, the perfect example is from years ago was Granite Point.
Yeah.
On the reservoir. They were about to sign the plat 20 some odd years ago. And then they said there was a gun club there, and you're 100% right. They found a perfect fan of lead.
And there was also Blue Mountain. They did a remediation down there.
Well, they're still doing it.
Yeah, that's the same
You're
thing.
gonna see some real remediation down there in the next few months because the DEP, outside of our governance, come down. They're going to essentially take down, trees.
7 acres.
7 acres and
then cleaning up the,
and then
cleaning up 4 acres and 3 of it's going to be used.
So my point was, I understand what you're saying, and then you're right. There's probably a perfect fan right out there of the lead.
Right. And it's in those areas and they, on their little plan, they show it, they pick and choose. They, a little tiny cone off here. Oh, it's going to go there. No, it's not. It's going to travel another 700 feet into Somers. They don't show shot ball zones in Somers. Of course not. You're not allowed to shoot into another county, another township.
Now,
So-
Colin, can I ask you a question? So we've had some things that have come up, like that big project. There was that farm right in Baldwin Place, and they asked us what to comment on it. How would it affect Somers? We're talking about traffic. I remember sending it back. Wouldn't some thing like this, which is right on the border, 2 counties, 2 towns, wouldn't it come to us at some point, at least for comment, to alert us that this was an issue?
I would think you would have gotten, I don't know who it would have gone to, maybe to the planning department. A notice of pending action.
I would think so, but I'm not aware of us.
So Rich,
knowing of this.
I mean, first begs the question, what's the land zoned for? That's in Somers. I mean, if it's residential, can you?
It's not zoned for anything. I mean,
Well, but
that's what he's saying.
no, it's got to be.
It's zoned residential.
Yeah, it's zoned for, it's not zoned for gun club.
Exactly.
Section vacant, is it
Yes, it is vacant.
part
Yeah.
of the open space?
Yes. Yeah.
Is it down there that rhinoceros?
But if you go to the property line and they're shooting, you're going to get a face full of lead. There's no signs, there's no fencing, there's nothing. The only sign is be quiet. The neighbors are sensitive to loud noises. I mean, what about, I'm telling you, these guys are something else.
If you go through the Briar,
Mhm.
the chills, the right, and then go back up the hill towards the West Branch.
You got to come up here.
You hit the power lines.
That's
You
it.
Go across the road there. If you look down those power lines, if you get down to the other gully there, that's where the gun club is.
Gotcha.
We can hear it in our neighborhood all day, Saturday and oh God. Every day, Saturday and Sunday.
Okay.
Actually, weekdays.
Let's close this down.
No, they're open 4 days a week. And holidays. So, but I mean, when this starts again, people have become apathetic. People in Heritage Hills, we posted, we're actually on their Facebook page, even though we don't live in Heritage Hills because of this issue before. But people are apathetic now. They don't know what's going to happen. And when they start shooting.
All right.
Why don't I?
Okay.
So I'm gonna have you, if you would like, come in and see me next week.
Sure.
And we can sit down and talk.
Yep, absolutely.
I think that'd be
Can
a
I
good way.
send the information that I sent 100 pages of documents to the planning board in Carmel. I put a lot of time into this.
Send it to us.
So why don't you send it to us?
Send it to
Okay.
You have,
And if you guys have any questions or need any explanation, just call me up and I'll let you know.
Is it digital?
Yes, everything's digital.
You might want to
No handwriting.
why don't you set up a time, call tomorrow, the office, set up a time, and you and I will sit and discuss for a little bit.
Okay, well, thanks for looking into
Rob,
this.
you might want to have Dave Smith in the meeting because he would probably be the one to send
Job planner.
a communication to the Carmel Planning Board.
Right. Okay.
So, so Steve, you said this is going to be a quick meeting or not?
If you were so last week.
Yeah.
So for the Boy Scouts, this is, it's limited to 2 or 3 minutes, and we're really not supposed to engage, but we do because we want to accommodate.
We don't really enforce the 3 minutes that often. It's like people speaking.
So, we're going to take this and take this
Yeah, I'll take it offline.
offline and try to.
But you should have came last week. You'd be home watching TV right now. You did that.
9 minutes and 51 seconds.
9 minutes and 51 seconds.
I believe.
Been here 15 years. That's the quickest I've ever seen it.
Yes.
Okay.
Anybody else here for public?
And it had nothing to do with Mr. Clinchy not being here.
And everything.
About that. I have several days. Through. Anybody else here for public comment? Anybody else out
Thanks
there?
for coming, actually, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for your, so if there's no one else here for public comment, I'd like to make a motion to close public comment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. So moved. We're going to move on now to approval of minutes. Patty?
I never sent them, so we'll do it next month,
Okay.
Got it.
next month.
Next month. All
Got
right,
it.
great. And I'll let everybody square out here.
Thanks, everybody. Good seeing you, Vic.
What? You're leaving?
Even the scouts, I'm taking note of this, guys. You're only getting half a merit badge.
Just about to get it.
I have a few things to say.
See you guys.
All right.
Boys, good luck.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Randy. Thank you. Somebody's bagging on the floor.
And I'll see you guys, I think it's the 11th,
Let's go lollipop.
15th? Okay,
Yeah, I'll get that.
okay, good.
Thanks so much.
No problem. Our whole crowd just left almost. 3 stalwarts are still here.
Extra
I
credit.
think 2 of them have to be.
One, we got a staple.
All right.
All right.
All right, let's go.
All righty. Department reports, Patty.
I have reports from the town clerk, building inspector, zoning board of appeals, plumbing, fire bureau of prevention, parks and recreation, planning and engineering, tax receiver, and director of finance.
Business of the board, nothing. Town board, no town of Somers updates today. Community forest management plan, Matt Wybell, Save a Tree.
Good evening. I am not Matt, but I have a presentation, so. Poor Matt.
You know, you're the first that's going to try out this technology.
We're gonna give it a shot.
We have
You got it covered? You got it covered?
I thought we had something last week, didn't we? No, we didn't have time last week. Never mind. We really didn't have anything last week.
Is that there? Great.
You just had Rob's picture.
Blocking it up.
Well, good evening. My name's Steve Robbins. I'm the consulting town engineer, and I have the privilege of introducing this evening Matt Weibel from Save a Tree. Matt is here to talk about the community forest management plan that the town has developed through Save a Tree. The town secured a grant from the DEC to develop this plan. Matt's going to walk through the work that he has done. He has been a great resource for the town, and we've had several meetings and training sessions with local highway and park staff on what this plan is and how to implement it. I do want to give credit to Michelle Higgins at the DEC and George Profos, also at the DEC, who's forester there. For their work with the town, helping work with us through the grant process and providing technical assistance to the town. So special recognition to the DEC, and we appreciate the state's partnership in working with municipalities and providing grants for important projects like this. So with that, I'll turn it over to Matt.
Thank you. As you said, my name is Matt Weibel. I'm a ISA certified arborist, tree risk assessment qualified arborist through the ISA, a registered consulting arborist through the American Society of Consulting Arborists. Button I pressed. Hold on. Okay, that's fine. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the assignment, what I did for the inventory, results of the inventory, program called iTree Echo, results of that, and then some of my recommendations is kind of briefly from what I found. So the assignment was to inventory trees within the right of way and available planting spaces in the right of way of select municipal roads. A priority road list was developed by, I guess, DPW. In addition, we did trees in 4 parks: Bailey Park, Van Tassel Park, Reese and Upper Reese Park, Angle Flat Preserve. And those areas include all the trees in the maintained areas, and then do what's called level 1 assessment of trees along borders and trails. And as Steve mentioned, this is funded by the DEC, grant from DEC.
Matt, when you say it's an inventory, is that literally the counting of it on different species, or I guess you're going to tell us how
exactly
the risk factor I see up there?
Yeah. So, so what it is, I walked every street that was listed as a priority street. I walked every one of those, and every tree was in the right of way. I collected the species, common and Latin name for every tree, measured diameter at breast height, 4.5 feet above grade. It's a standard measurement point. Did an ISA risk assessment for each tree, noted its condition, excellent, good, fair, poor, or dead. Made notes of specific defects, large deadwood, dieback, decay, whatever I might find. Made recommendations to mitigate those risks, assigned a priority level to those recommendations, and then did something called a residual risk, which is the tree's currently elevated risk, and we're do the prune the deadwood, saw cable. Whenever we recommended the tree, what will the risk then be? We get it from a high to a low, high to a moderate. How does that work? I collected location, so GPS location as well as address for trees. I also included available planting spaces that I found along these roads. So for those, I collected the type of, it was a strip, a lawn strip, an open lawn area, a tree pit, tree well. How big, how wide was that strip if it's a strip? Are there overhead wires, yes or no? I recommended a tree size based on those factors of large, medium, or small. And same thing, got location, address, and GPS. So overall, there were 3,646 trees in the roads I did, and this slide is a typo, so I apologize. I found 135 available planting spaces in those roads as well. So you can kind of see the area that there's some gaps there of roads that weren't included. We didn't have enough budget to do every single road in town.
Should that say town of Somers?
It should have. Yes, that's a typo. Yes. So here's Reese and Upper Reese Park. So I was talking about before in parks, trees in the maintained areas were all included. So you can see around the ball fields, around the buildings, a row by the tennis courts there. But then I also walked along the perimeter of private property. You can see on the right side down to the lower right corner, there's a few trails that run through those wooded areas there. Because obviously doing every tree within the woods would be a waste of time. If a tree falls in the woods and no one's there to get hit, it doesn't really matter. So we focused on places that actually have a target, that would be useful for the town to know to manage those trees. So
Can I just ask you one question? Just look at the numbers there. They're not in sequence like along the side of the tennis courts at Reese. I was just wondering if there's a reason what that means. Goes 4, 3, 6, 2, 4, 3, 5, 8.
Yeah, it's so zoomed out that there's like 30 or 40 trees in that row, but you can't see every number.
Oh, I get you. Okay. All right.
So I should have made the numbers appear when it gets closer in this, but
okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so briefly go over some of the results here. So, as I mentioned, as part of the inventory, I collected diameter for each tree in the inventory. So diameter kind of uses a proxy for age. What you want in a population is more trees in the younger or middle-aged class to replace the older. Obviously, a tree that's older and larger is more likely to die in the short term than a younger tree. So we want to have more younger trees to kind of replace the older ones as they go. So this is actually a fairly good distribution where we're peaking in the 8 to 10 range, and again in the 16, 18 range. So that's pretty good distribution wise, what we want to see. In terms of the species diversity, 97 different species were included in the inventory. Sugar maple is by far the most common, made up almost 20% of the population. That's a fairly significant number. We generally prefer not to have more than 10% of any one species. And that's because when certain pest issues come in, it can wipe out entire. So for example, like in the 1950s, American elm was a dominant, roadside tree, street tree in America. Dutch elm disease came in and killed the vast majority of the elm trees. So they all had to be replaced. And then a lot of people ended up replacing those with ash trees because they had a similar kind of shape. And now we have old ash borer killing most of our ash trees. So you want to try to avoid that kind of homogeneity and get more diversity in there. So if the next pest does come in that maybe kills sugar maples, that would be pretty devastating. 90% of your population, your tree canopy goes. So you want to keep that diversity a little better than this, basically. And then 7 species were invasive. Overall, 50% of the population were invasive species. Nori maple, the most common one of those, because they, until fairly recently, were planted pretty commonly as a road tree because they tolerate urban environments, but they do escape cultivation and kind of get into the native lands and displace native species. But Mensch also did a risk assessment for every tree, and the ISA has a protocol for doing that. And so if you look at the top matrix there, you see likelihood of tree or tree part failure on the left side along the top, likelihood of impacting a target. So, when you do the assessment, look for an issue I'm concerned about. So it could be larger with the canopy, it could be decay at the base or whatever it is. Look at the likelihood if the tree were to fail at that part, what target would it hit? If it falls into a woods where no one is, that's okay. If it falls over a parking lot where cars are constantly parked there, that's a high target. So you look at those two things, get overall, and you get a likelihood of failure and impact. You use the one below, the matrix below there, look at the consequence of that failure. So obviously if a 20-inch tree were to fall on a car or a house, that's more significant than if a 5-inch tree were to fall. So you might have a significant or severe consequence for a 20-inch tree, but a negligible if it's a 5-inch tree. So that gives you an overall risk rating for the tree. So this, you can see 95% were low risk and then only 5 were high risk, which shows that the town's doing a pretty good job of identifying those high risk trees. Those are mostly dead or dying trees or obvious decay defects that are in high use areas. So the town's doing a pretty good job, or had been doing a pretty good job already of maintaining those trees before they got too bad, which is positive. So I did the planting space inventory, as I said, 135 planting spaces. I didn't consider any strip of lawn that was less than 5 feet wide. I didn't consider for use. And that's because even at 5 feet wide, a small tree can still start lifting sidewalks to be an issue. So prefer not to use those. Small trees that mature size under 30 feet, will recommend if there's overstory wires or other utilities that might be in the way. Medium-sized tree, if there's some other issues, planting space isn't that large, or there's other issues running farther overhead. And then large trees recommended spots where there's no canopy restriction and no root zone restrictions. And there are 118 the locations were for large trees. So as I mentioned, after I did the inventory, I ran this through a program called iTree Echo. It's a suite of tools developed by U.S. Forest Service, based on peer-reviewed science that looks at the environmental, ecological benefits of trees within an inventory within a population. So in this case, it estimates the amount of pollution removal on an annual basis, total carbon storage within the trees, annual sequestration of carbon, oxygen produced, and things like that. So based on the iTree results, the trees within the inventory remove approximately 2,059 pounds of pollution per year. They currently store 2,990 tons of carbon and sequester annually an extra 33 more tons per year, produce almost 89 tons a year of oxygen. And the canopies of those trees basically prevent runoff of additional 92,000 cubic feet of water, storm water annually. So obviously if the trees weren't there, there'd be a lot of overburden for sewer systems and waterways and things of that nature.
How does the math work on this? Sorry, pollution removal, 2,000 pounds per year equates to $2,400. How?
Yeah, so the dollars the program seeks to put an estimate
ratio?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Okay.
Basically, I'm not sure what that's peer reviewed. I don't know what the research comes from, but yeah, they estimate that it saves that much per year, and I guess health benefits and things of that nature.
But I mean, just relatively speaking, I mean, what does that mean to me? I mean, is that big, a lot, or a little, or?
Right. Yeah, the other part is only the trees we inventory, obviously. So I'm
sorry,
it's also only the trees that were actually in the inventory. So if you think of all the trees in the woodlands throughout those parks and roads that we didn't do, we probably did 5-10% of the trees within the town.
Just gross that up.
So it'd be significantly more, obviously, if we include all the forested trees in the assessment. So I guess the way to look at it is, if we were to remove that many trees, if you were to clear cut a large area and removing trees, this is how much oxygen we're losing in a year and how much carbon carbon that's now in the atmosphere that wouldn't be sequestered by the trees.
You mean like remove trees for housing or stuff like that? Right.
Things like that. So this program is used sometimes. I don't know if you care about this at all, but for certain places, I think in like California, where they're doing a land clearing or a development process,
control,
because they require some tree replacement. And the one way to calculate that is, we'll see how do we replace the environmental benefits the trees are removing. So removing 10, 30-inch trees, you run through iTree, and these trees sequester this much carbon, this much oxygen. How many 3-inch, 4-inch trees you have to plant now to replace that ecological benefit over the next 10 or 15 or 20 years? So that's one way some towns are kind of, because a lot of places have like a 1-to-1 tree ratio, but a 3-inch tree doesn't really do the same as a 30-inch tree. And it's going to take 50, 60, 80 years to get to that same spot. So how do we think about how to equivalize that? And that's one way some people have sought to do that. But that's a lot of time.
Here in a moment.
So I made management recommendations for all the trees, or that needed it, I should say. 2,200 trees I didn't make any recommendations for. remove approximately 100 trees, treat tree. So it could be anything from pruning and installing a cable, any kind of action to the tree, about 600. Treat site, that could be like, let's say it's, there's a bench under a tree. So it's a high, if you move that bench and the tree fails, it's lowers the occupancy of the site. So maybe that reduces the risk of the site. It's a mature tree that we don't want to remove. So that's an option. As I said, I assigned priority levels for those recommendations. So there's only 3 immediates. There are 3 ash trees that were still in fairly good health that I thought could be treated for emerald ash borer and preserved if we wanted to. Then you can see, I see the breakdown between high, medium, and low recommendations. So I used general pricing and create a 5-year plan, how much it would cost to do all these recommendations over a 5-year period. And it was 1.2 million. And some of this work's already been done. I did the inventory, I forgot to mention that in the beginning. Late 2021 was when the inventory was done. So some of this has already been performed in the last year. So going forward, obviously use the inventory to work on the higher priority recommendations first to move through as budget allows. Something that the DEC really recommends, and it's a great idea. So if you can have people on staff in town who are ISA certified or risk assessment qualified, help do like post-storm assessments or even annual assessments of trees in high use areas, to know if there's a better idea of what trees need action or don't need action. So that would be useful. And then someone also knows, is good at young tree pruning. If you prune a tree, pruning a 3-4 inch tree, you can, few pruning cuts, relatively cost effective and cheap. You can fix things like codominant stems and structural issues when they're young. The tree will live longer and have less maintenance needs in the future. So if you can start having someone who's trained and knows how to do that, you can do a lot of trees in a day and, like I said, reduce your future maintenance costs that way. And as I mentioned previously, 20% of the population was sugar maples. Overall, almost 35% was within the maple genus. So red maple, sugar maple, Norway maple. So these are pretty high percent of the population. So I'd recommend trying to avoid maples in general for your street tree plantings going forward, and trying to improve your diversity a little bit. So some of the underutilized species, things like bur oak or hackberry, Kentucky coffee tree, hickory trees, American lindens. But there's a bunch more in the report. And
But say that again, just, will be that, what are the trees? You don't want maples, but you would want to direct to what species?
So right now, like I said, maple trees are about 35% of the population within the tree inventory. So we want to plant, so based on the results of the inventory, things like bur oak, type of oak tree, swamp white oak, hackberry.
I think my wife would love it, but
Linden.
I did a Kentucky coffee tree in my garden.
Yeah, it sounds great. Yeah, it's great. The coffee from those aren't as good as real coffee. So
You want around.
you can do it though. So the point is, there's a lot of native. These are all native trees too. I want to focus on native trees that are adapted to the environment here. You don't have to worry about becoming invasive or skipping cultivation. So there's a few species that are relatively easy to find in nursery stock, and that are not that overly used yet in your town, that would help create that more diversity. So hopefully the next pest that comes in doesn't impact maple trees, because if the next tree is an maple borer that's very damaging maple trees, you're going to have a pretty big problem, I guess, considering you're going to lose, remove 34% of your trees or treat them or whatever you have to do, depending on what the pest is. So we want to try to avoid that kind of thing going forward. So that's the quick summary.
So Steve, if I can ask you, so the grant that we got, it was from the DEC, you said? That was to conduct this survey. Now we have to decide what, if anything, we want to do with this information, right?
Yes. So Highway and Parks, have been working with Matt, and they've been great partners in this process as well. Obviously, town resources to address every need is limited, but having this kind of inventory does allow the town to apply for other DEC grants for more tree maintenance and other resources. So this was kind of the first step in being able to access some of those other funding sources, and get additional training and support to town staff. The dollar numbers in a couple of slides previously, assume that an outside service is doing all of that tree work and not in-house. So there's some significant savings that can occur especially with the smaller trees where town staff is very capable of.
Now, the town of Bedford,
in some cases where it's appropriate.
The town of Bedford has a program like this with another busy bee. I think it's 2 days a week they go in there. Is that a similar thing where they're taking care of trees in the town right of way that have safety issues, or I guess safety is the main thing, right?
Well, and to the town's credit and the utilities credit, there's been a lot of tree work done over the years in town right of ways as well. So, I don't know if you can speak to Bedford, but I'm not familiar exactly with what they're doing, but it sounds like a similar structure.
But, and so you mentioned about electrical wires and NYSEG's plan. I was going to ask about that. Is this in any way combined with that, or this is just safety? We're not talking about the impact on wires. And my second question, maybe you want to answer, is you talk about invasive species of trees. And we know that there are tremendous numbers of invasive species of vines and mile a minute, whatever, we had the whole thing here, bamboo, but especially the vines. You notice that a lot of trees, which of course makes them unsafe because eventually you can kill them. Is that part of this too? And so I guess, is there any part of NYSEG, you work with NYSEG to keep the lights on, and then also the invasive vines and other things like that that affect trees? Is there any mitigation program for those things?
I didn't work directly with the power company, but I consider the power lines as a target when going through the risk assessment process. So obviously, if a tree were to fall, take out wires, that'd be a pretty significant issue with blackout for.
So the consideration.
It's consideration looking at the risk assessment portion as a target. In terms of the vines, the tree in the inventory had vines on that were pretty invasive and hanging on the canopy, and because as you quickly mentioned, it had extra weight, so it can cause limbs to break. They can take over the canopy and shade trees out and kill them. So if vines were noticed on them, I recommend the cutting or removing the vines, but there wasn't a specific inventory to identify trees with vines per se. But it does take into account that, I guess that's my question, that you would eliminate or cut down the invasive vines in order to save the tree and not wait until they killed the tree and then we lose a tree and then we have more expense. Right. Yeah, it's definitely recommendation made sometimes is just to cut or remove the vines as best as possible. Yeah.
But that wasn't a prerequisite in terms of when you did your study, though.
No. I mean, I was just doing like I said, the right of ways along the roads, and within the parks. If it was a tree that was near a trail or a target that had vines, and it was an issue, it would be in the inventory. But
let me just add, is this an operational plan as well? I mean, in other words, can you operationalize this plan from what has been done so far?
Yeah, that's been a lot of the discussion with Parks and Highway is, within their resources, how do they incorporate this into their workflow and where do they focus their efforts?
But the plan is in such a state that they can adjust their work. It's a matter of getting them into their workflow. They know what they have to do. It's specific enough to operationalize. I don't know how to say that any better. I mean,
and even to the degree during our last meeting, there was discussion about how to integrate some of the GIS resources that have been developed with this inventory to within the work order management system that Highway and other departments in the town currently utilize. So, yes.
So, and the trees that you looked at, could you look at it as a sample? In other words, you have a recommendation for this tree, but that may mean that around this tree, you have those similar problems. And when the operational guys go there, they look at it and they kind of make some judgments about what's going on around.
Yes, looked at every tree, obviously, but yeah, sometimes there are like a row of ash trees that are all the same condition and the same priority rating. But yeah, in some cases there might be a thing where this tree is a high priority, but the one next to it's medium priority, but it might be cheaper since you already have a crew there to work on both at the same time. So that's something you can consider.
All right.
But yeah, the inventory wasn't done by sampling per se in the sense, I mean, it with every tree.
Okay.
Was there.
And Rich, what I was going to say before was just keep in mind when NYSEG does it, it only does it around, 10, 10, 15, 15 around its wires.
Right.
So, and anything outside of that, they're not going to touch.
Because a couple of years ago, Tom, and I guess everybody was on the board then. We set aside some money.
Yes.
For work on trees before they became a problem and affect the electrical wires. I don't think it. Remember, we waited one day for like somebody's going to come in with a proposal that never came.
It never came in. The biggest problem is people hate the trees when you lose your power, but when you go to cut it down on a blue sky day, everybody does don't touch my tree.
Yeah.
But we've had NYSEG has had an aggressive program, as Rob knows, doing quite a bit of tree trimming recently. And correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, in order to trim wires or trim trees around wires, normally you have to have a special license or carry a special insurance as well.
Right. Yeah. To do within a certain, if it was 10 feet or whatever it is. Yes.
All right. Thanks.
That's great. That was very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thanks for your time.
Got to get rid of those ash trees. Bane of everybody's existence.
Viruses will take care of them by themselves.
Yeah, but those are ones that they come down.
Yeah.
They're terrible.
Ash trees?
Yeah, ash trees.
They're fragile.
Really?
Yeah.
They could make baseball bats out of them. Those are tough.
Move on to number 3 here. Authorize the execution of the renewed intermunicipal agreement IMA between the County of Westchester and the Town of Somers for provision of enhanced 911 services for a 5-year term commencing October 1st, 2022 and continuing through September 30th, 2027. I'd like to make a motion to authorize.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Number 4, request permission to purchase one new 10 ambulatory passenger, one wheelchair van from the New York State OGS Group 40523 at the cost of $101,016 per memo dated February 27th, 2023 from Barbara Tabor, Seniors and Nutrition Program Director. I'd like to make a motion to request permission.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Have an add-on here.
And when did we do the add-on, Rob? When did we get that? Did we just get that?
Today.
And would it come from Kim?
Yeah. But it came from Bob for the Director of Finance. Motion to increase the capital budget for the Reynolds House in the amount of $3,837.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Brings us on to number 5.
Well, that's what I was talking about, actually. Sorry.
Consider adoption of resolution in objection to Governor Hochul's New York Housing Compact proposal. Let's start a discussion here with this. As many people may have seen, lately the government has proposed for a housing compact. There are many Republicans and Democrats coming together throughout the state opposing this. Her mandates here, in a day and age where people are searching for partisanship. You have something right now where you have Republicans and Democrats coming together to oppose this. The problem, I believe, stems from a Manhattan problem, where it's not a Westchester, it's not a Putnam or Rockland problem, or even Long Island. Many communities out there have ADU legislation. They have affordable housing. They're doing their fair share when it comes to TOD, the transit-oriented development. Manhattan seems to be the problem. There's housing in Manhattan right now that hasn't been able to go through the proper channels. About 40,000 houses in Manhattan currently right now. And unfortunately, these mandates here are putting a lot of pressure on communities like ours and Somers. It's coming down to a one-size-fits-all approach from the governor. Somers here a number of years ago did our fair share when it came to affordable housing. During the time Westchester County was under the housing settlement agreement, 253 units of affordable housing was constructed and approved, which amounted to approximately 33% of the 750 units of required affordable housing that needed to be constructed to satisfy the settlement agreement. Somers did 33% of all of Westchester's affordable housing during that settlement.
And I believe, Rob, our percentage of the total population is about 2 of the county.
Yes.
No.
And now we're being told that we need to do more. It's what a lot of people say, and Republicans and the Democrats, like I said, it's bipartisan, is that it's not a one size fits all approach. Somers is different than Ossining. Ossining is different than North Salem. Somers is different than White Plains. What makes us unique is having our home rule. And I find it, hard as I talk to a lot of people that this one size fits all approach it's what's in the best interest for the towns, which is not. We know what's in the best interest of our communities. We sit here every single day listening to builders come in. We sit here and we understand what our roads are about, our infrastructure. These type of housing mandates with the housing compact and the TOD and the ADUs, we're not equipped for it. We're not equipped for it. We have roads. We know that Route 118, 202, 35, Route 100, Route 6, 116s. These are all major cut-throughs coming through Somers. Our roads are in horrible shape. She's not taking into consideration what it would do to our police, our fire, our schools, our hospitals. We're not equipped for these type of mandates. It would add undue pressure to that. We're in a watershed area here. We had a lot of conservation in this area. She's talking about eroding Secra as well. Doesn't take into consideration, right, the sewers versus septic, wells versus public water. Her TOD mandates that she's looking to do would affect Lake Purdy's, the Purdy's train station, Goldings Bridge, and Croton Falls. And not one of these MTA Metro North Railroad stations lie in the town of Somers. Can you imagine that? So we would be directly affected by Purdy's train station, Goldings Bridge, and Croton Falls. So Lake Purdy's would be the one that would be mostly affected by it. Then you have over by Stonehouse Road, you have Butlerville Road, you have the Route 100 corridor, you have Whitlock Circle that was before us a number of months ago when they talked about Best Plumbing. They would be affected over there. The town of Somers has developed a comprehensive plan. We have our master plan for the town. And if these type of mandates went through, we would say goodbye to our master plan. We would say goodbye to Somers being one of the lowest tax towns in Westchester County. It would put undue pressure to the schools of that nature. This is a local government and this bipartisan effort in passing this resolution of working together. Our planning board, as we saw tonight, made a recommendation for the transient basis. That would take some control away from the planning board. It would take control away from the zoning board of appeals. Things would be taken away from a town which knows best and what's in the best interest of the town. And this is why I strongly oppose her housing compact. And we have a resolution for that, but I won't get into that long resolution. If anybody else wants to weigh on this, I'd be more than happy to hear from what you guys have to say as well.
I just like to frame it out for a second. The governor has essentially produced, a desktop plan for a housing compact for the state. She's focusing on the tri-state area. She put a number out there of about 800,000 units.
800,000 units
that need to be absorbed or created over a very short period of time. Okay. And, they're discussing percentages, what they mean, but Westchester and let's say Nassau County, Suffolk, it's got to do 3 times the amount that the rest of the state has to do. And that's alluding to Rob. I think a lot of that has absorbed some of the things that are going on in New York. And that's just a huge number for us. And if you're going to try to do that in 1, 2, or 3 years, it's impossible. Yeah. And the impacts are just unfathomable. There's no, that we talk about these things at the desktop level, but that could be 300, 400, 500 units over a short period of time. We don't know yet. I mean, but they said 3% of, maybe some number, the number of homes that are here. But if we had to absorb that type of, type of density, that would be very costly to us. The disturbing part is the implementation of this. The implementation is not from the ground up. She's coming top down and she's saying, look, we're going to do this and we're going to override local zoning. It's going to be a right of use as opposed to, they have to come to a development plan and look at the environmental impacts, look at the, the local impacts and so on to absorb this. Again, that gets just very, very, it's been very, very disturbing. And all the supervisors are sort of up in, saying this is not make sense, but we feel like it's falling on deaf ears. So, we're in a situation where, we're facing with an unknown, but it's a lot. And, if we have to do this, it's going to take away home rule because essentially they're going to come down and say, we're going to override zoning. Some of the things that Rob had referred to as part of our implementation plan, she kind of says, well, look, this is how you're going to get this done. We want to do this along the railroads. All right. That's this transit oriented development. And so targeting that and saying we're going to essentially override zoning there. And that's where we're going to emphasize where density could be. And not thinking about, do I have sewer there? What is it, wetlands? What's going on? Do I have the roads, the infrastructure? And then once you put that in there, how do you absorb that into your school district? How do you absorb that into your services?
So she's allotting $250 million for infrastructure.
Which is nothing.
Which is nothing. We know that there's projects going on statewide. There's projects going down county that are $25-30 million projects going on right now. That's 10% right there.
So you hear buzzwords like transit-oriented development, which is a buzzword for rezoning around the railroads. There's ADUs, which are accessory dwelling units that say, look, in order that people can essentially put apartments or subdivide their properties into smaller, small parcels and construct, and we do have an ADU zoning in the town. It's got to go through a process. And then there's a third portion of this, which is the overall goal, right? So if we have a number and you got TOD, you have ADU, and then you might have something else that you have to do just to make the goal. And of course, they're doing this through the budgetary process, which is somewhat of a backdoor. It's not going to the legislature first and being debated. It's being attached to a budget and it becomes law once it's in the budget. And so this state we find very disturbing as well. So it's just very difficult to plan and to digest what's going on. So I think we have a resolution which essentially says we oppose.
And we'll continue to keep an eye on it. If you out there have, the budget is scheduled for April 1st. We don't know if it'll happen on April 1st. There's a lot of back and forth on this particular topic. But we'll find out in the next 3 weeks or so, if it comes out on April 1st, how it changes. And what we see right now may look vastly different. It may look a little different. Maybe there'll be some tweaks to certain things on the TOD or the ADUs. But ultimately, there is going to most likely be some sort of a housing compact. And I agree with both the councilman and the supervisor. The key thing here, and we've said this about other items, not just housing, is home rule. We live in this town. Some of us grew up in this town. All of us have lived here for quite a while. And we don't want somebody else coming in and saying, hey, here's what you're going to do in your town. It just doesn't make sense.
It's the process and how it's going about being done.
Right. So
there are many people around Westchester County and all over. We understand that there is a need for housing, right? But it's the process and how it's being implemented, which is what a lot of people are opposed to.
Rob, if I could finish, it was what you were saying is, years ago when they had to have the HUD monitor and all that, Somers did more than its share. Because if you recall, we have 75 units that didn't even count towards the HUD number.
Mm-hmm.
They were approved prior to that coming out. So I don't know if that was included. I don't think that was
That wasn't included in my
250.
number.
So I mean, we're looking more at, over 300, which take the 33% and add another, 5-6% to that. So, we've shown that, we're not against housing. We understand that, we want places for our kids when they grow up to live and our parents to live and us to live as we age. But we just want to make sure that we have a say in the process and make sure that it's done smartly and wisely, and not just somebody who's 100 miles away saying, here's what you're going to do.
I mean, here's the disturbing part. I mean, we're faced with an emergency. They're presenting this as an emergency, and essentially that all gives them additional authority to move quickly outside the realm of some of the things that might be done in a normal process. But how do you get yourself into a situation where you have 800,000 units that you're short, and now you have to turn around and resolve that issue in a short period of time? And, we're planners here. We're planning the town out and whatever. But now we're going to be the victims in this. I mean, we're going to essentially have to resolve an issue because things have gotten to a point where they're so urgent that it's got to be done quickly.
Yeah,
So
I was
it's-
curious about that too, Councilman Sirico, because the 800,000 units that they're proposing over the last 10 years in New York State, the census revealed that we've lost over 1 million people throughout migration. They're moving to other states. So there's 1 million units right there, 500,000 units right there. So how on earth could this be a crisis that we need 800,000 immediately? I agree with you.
I mean, it's like the numbers. I'm not sure where the numbers come from. I mean, there is a need for housing, and it's what can I say?
Particular type of housing.
But
We've seen the typical housing, that's right. I mean, it's the 55 and older communities. That's what we've seen, right? The people who want to downsize but still want to stay in New York and be close to where their kids grew up, and if their kids come back. I mean, we've seen that. We've seen many people come before us on our town board who asked, about these communities, the 55 and older communities. We've seen that. That's the type of housing out there everybody's talking about. And we get it. There is a need for housing, but it's the way about going about doing it. Having the governor come, and each town is unique. Each town is special in their own right. Each town has their own way of doing things, and that's what the home rule is about. And each town, and a lot of towns throughout Westchester County have had all of these different ADU legislation in there. They had affordable housing. Some people are already doing TOD. TOD may be great for
Rockland County.
Rockland County, but it may not. Doesn't work here in Westchester.
Or here in Somers.
Yeah.
I mean, we have 3 train stations, maybe 4 if you can include.
Well, Katona does not fit in the half-a-mile radius.
Yeah.
So. Rich, you want to add something?
Well, the thing about it is, yes, if I were governor, I would say, is there a need for housing? Yes, for the population you cited, and also for younger working population. Businesses always say we need more housing for working age people in various professions, and that creates a healthy economy. So I understand that. And I do understand that if you're going to build housing, the future is in reducing carbon in the atmosphere. So put them along mass transit, and then put money into mass transit, because we can do a whole lot better on that. And that, of course, produces jobs as well as reduces pollution. So I understand those goals. I do support the opposition to this, though, because a couple of things. To say that builders can go around environmental regulations, maybe it's in there which specific ones and under what specific circumstances. But anytime you're tinkering with that raises suspicions. And in my eye, nothing against builders, but putting the fox in charge of the chickens, I'm not sure. And I think that as far as home rule, look, there have been things that have been controversial in the past about that. The special ed law goes back to 1965. That was very controversial, where every special ed kid is guaranteed an appropriate education by the school district. That was very controversial. And it was a federal law that each school district had to follow. American Disabilities Act, 1991, same thing. You got to put it in what, for who? So sometimes people look at that imposition as being unreasonable, but after a period of time, that becomes the status quo. Say, hey, that was a good idea. That helped do it. So I think home rule is very important because you want to keep the quality of your town. Small towns like us have an identity. And I would say that the town board tries very hard to reflect the desires of the population to maintain that identity, to keep a rural, semi-rural sort of look to the town in terms of the buildings that are built, how high they are, about walkability and other things like that, and protection of the environment. And there will be people who will use home rule simply to block anything. Not in my backyard, baby. And so I think on this, I understand the goals of it. I do think that be better off to engage perhaps in a regional basis with someone who would listen to the individual concerns of each town, many of which the town board has raised here. And I also think you get things done when you say, and this has been many of the concerns of not only Congressman Lawler, but Congressman Maloney before him, who both favor increased housing, is you get more with a carrot than with a stick. For example, we've provided a lot of affordable housing. I think it's to the betterment of Somers. And we did that because what did we get out of that? Well, we got Anglefly Preserve, which cost well over $20 million. And that was a buy-in by the county, the state, and the town. In return for that, we have one of the great preserves in northern Westchester that enhances the quality of life here. People wanting to come in because look, you could be there and you've got 10 miles of trails just right there next to Reese Park. So I think that were I governor, I think I would go back and say, how can I get towns to want to buy in so it becomes a win-win? No one likes it when something's imposed upon them up above without any sense of, can you hear my objections to this? Perhaps there were meetings that I'm not aware of where the input was asked for from the ground up, but most good things come from the ground up. If you're running a school district, you ask for what happens, in the classroom and work its way up, not imposed from the top down. And the same thing with a town like ours. So, I am opposed this in its current form. I understand the goals. I think it could be better. I think that's what many of the towns and leaders in Westchester have said. And so I would support it. I would support a revision of it and trying to accomplish similar goals, but with respect for the towns that it's affecting.
I mean, in its current form, they're talking about, the right for builders to come in here. It's their right to come in and build. And, they're diluting, all the environmental laws, state laws, right, that we adhere to here in a watershed, area. Okay, that is going to be relaxed so they can fast track and incentivize, building. Okay, and it's very one size fit all. And in some cases, it's arbitrary, capricious. You're sitting here and you're looking at this thing and you're saying, what? And no question, it's going to make it more costly here. No question. You can't. How do you absorb something like this? I just got to turn it around and pass it off to the taxpayer.
Yeah, we all agree.
So on that, I would also encourage everybody that listens to this, do your homework and read up. It's been very visible in the papers, but I would say to you, in my interaction with the public, a lot of people don't know or understand how to process this.
So in the next couple of weeks,
write letters.
Reach out to your senator, your congressman,
more so your senator and assemblyman, and try and do it within the next couple of weeks, because if they stick to their timeline, in the old days, the budget used to sometimes lag for 5-6 months, but now that their salaries are tagged to it, they don't get paid if they don't have a budget. Guess what?
Yeah,
they usually pass it a little bit more quickly.
Names and addresses on the website.
Yeah, we were told last night, I was at a meeting in North Castle, and our assemblyman and state senator zoomed in. And we were told by them that March 13th is an important date because that's when the Senate and the Assembly come up with what they call one bill.
Oh, is that right?
One bill rule. And they need to hear from citizenry this weekend.
It's not going to happen.
And they urged as many, they said, the more the better. That's one of the first times, I must say, I heard state representatives invite that type of participation because they want the ammunition
to go
to battle for it.
Is that Shelley Mayer?
Shelley Mayer and Chris Burdick.
Chris Burdick too.
But this is the upsetting part of this whole thing. You're giving the public a couple of days to get this done. I mean, it's happening that fast.
That's the problem. Yeah, they only introduced it with not enough time.
So you should put up on your website.
We'll put up on the website
the email address.
Because
people should do.
Yeah, we're going to do. Yeah, we're ready to go with the resolution. So thank you for that information, Roland. Listen, so I think we've all heard enough. We all weighed in. I want to make a motion to adopt the resolution in objection to Governor Hochul's New York Housing Compact. As written. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay, great.
Good. Thanks. We'll clue you in at our next meeting what happens. Although I'm sure you'll read it in the papers.
Financials, authorize the 2022 budget transfer from the general fund, highway and library per March 2nd, 2023 per email from Robert Kehoe, Director of Finances. Motion to authorize.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay. Personnel, current vacancies again, there are current vacancies on our town boards, Affordable Housing Board, Partners in Prevention, Planning Board as well. Then we have some other Architectural Review Board and Parks and Recreation. I'm going to put all three of these together, 3, 4, and 5, Patty. To authorize the reappointment of Katie O'Keefe, authorize the reappointment of Don Penzanine, and authorize the reappointment of John Zatola. Katie to the Somers Architecture Review Board, Don is the Somers Parks and Rec, and John Zatola to Somers Parks and Rec. I'd like to make a motion to authorize all three.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Planning and engineering, nothing there. Police, nothing. Consensus agenda. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the consensus agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Authorize the supervisor to execute the local government record. That's all this is. All right. See what happens when we're getting late here? Calendar here. April 13th and April 20th, both at 7 o'clock. Town board work session, town board regular meeting, April 4th and April 11th, 7 o'clock, town board work session and town board regular meeting. Those are our next meetings coming up. We do have some, we'll do the fun fact out. We have some announcements. Everybody here on the town board would like to extend our condolences and prayers to the family of Erwin Shiro, the ex-chief of the Somers Volunteer Fire Department. During his 36 years with the fire department, Shiro became known for both his extensive knowledge and experience, as well as his friendliness and willingness to lend a helping hand to just about anyone.
Erwin he was the nicest guy. He really was. We worked closely with him during a couple of the big storms that we had a few years ago. I remember he called me. He was one of the ones who was going around helping to pump out people's basements. The fire department did it as a service for people who had some sump pumps. And I remember for a brief time, I had my garage door open with my generator running, and he actually called me personally. He said, "Hey, Tom, just make sure you close it. You don't want to have the generator running with the garage and getting in there." So he would do things like that and look out for you. He was a super nice guy. His daughter was actively involved in town as well with the fire department. And she actually was the EMT for many of our youth football games when my son was playing. So a family that just was very involved. I was unaware until I read it in the paper. I was shocked by it and saddened by it. So just a nice guy who's really going to be missed and really did a lot for the town of Somers.
I knew Irwin pretty well for maybe 20, 25 years. And he really was that man of real integrity, someone you could rely on. You just got that feeling in emergency. He was the perfect chief that he was just like a rock and a bright guy. I knew his his family. Look forward to see him every time. And like you say, Tom, he was just a very friendly guy, always giving, asked for nothing. And Stacy is now a teacher. His daughter is a teacher, and she's an EMT, and she's a mom too. And condolences to the whole family. Irwin's as good a person as I've known in Somers.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I believe his
It's like a Scarano homecoming here.
My son left, my daughter comes in. So it's just
services are this weekend.
this weekend, this Saturday. And then speaking of Saturday here, we have two events that are going on here in town. Actually, a couple more than two events. First one is Somers High School football team is going to be recognized. Again, they're going to be doing their Parade of Champions, and that is Saturday, March 11th. And that is at 1 o'clock. The parade will begin. That's at Van Tassel, and they'll finish up at the high school road. The road will close at 12:45. So people are encouraged to park at Primrose and the high school for the parade.
Or at my house.
Yeah. Or your house.
Spillover park.
And then Make Somers Beautiful litter cleanup is this weekend as well, Saturday and Sunday. From 9 to 12 p.m. Supplies are here at the registration at the Elephant Hotel. You can park in the parking lot. And then the rain date will be Saturday, March 17th and Sunday, March 18th. I know we're supposed to get some weather here this weekend.
A little bit Saturday morning, and then next week I think they're saying Tuesday.
Yep, and then the parade will be rain or shine. Parade.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be all right. It shouldn't be that bad, I don't think.
Shouldn't deter you. It's football season still.
There you go.
All right, and then the Somers Middle School Drama Club presents The Lion King Junior, and that would be Friday, March 10th at 7 o'clock, and then Saturday, March 11th, 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. And there's a snow date for March 12th. That's the parade over at the play over at the middle school. Somers Partners in Prevention is excited to present When Mental Health and Substance Abuse Collide, with a partnership to end addiction. And that is Thursday, March 16th, and that's 7 to 8:30 via Zoom. All of this information is on our website. And then the Somers High School Drama presents A Wedding Singer, The Wedding Singer, based on the Adam Sandler film. And that is March 24th, Friday, March 24th, 7:30, Saturday, March 25th at 7:30, Sunday, March 26th at 2 p.m. General admission, $15. Students and for seniors is $10. Hold the date again for the Town of Somers Independence Day celebration. It's Saturday, June 24th. We're still, yeah, exactly. And the rain date is Sunday, June 25th. And again, we are still looking for volunteers for our Veterans Committee. If you'd like to be a part of it, you can reach out to Lion Katie O'Keefe. The number again is 914-384-1612.
And just before the fun facts, I got to sing his praises last week.
That's one of my fun facts.
Oh, I'm sorry. You go right ahead. I apologize. I did it last week. I was going to do it this week. You go right ahead.
I get to go first.
Sorry. That's what she speaks when she's not supposed to, like she said before, because we're all afraid of her.
Put him in his place.
On this day in 1996, we lost the great comedian George Burns at 100 years old. On this day in 1959 was the launch of the Barbie doll. She's now 64 years old.
I heard that today, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I'd like to be the first one to congratulate our own Richard Clinchy on his basketball team winning the New York State Class B Boys Basketball Championship.
It's section, not state.
Oh,
section.
Next week, if we're lucky.
All right. Well, the section.
Good luck. Thank you.
So
Congratulations.
Thank you.
For you and the boys.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Your record now is 23-1?
24-1.
24-1. I actually was unable to make the game. I was, as I said last week, I try not to go to his games because I'm usually a jinx, but I am off. I'm off the snide.
You were 0-2. You were 0-2.
But I went to he's Section 1. Rich had a game a couple nights ago against Section 9. Beat them. I was there, so I am now allowed to attend future games. But we wish him luck. His team is a great team. I will say this: as I watched the game when he won the sectionals, the commentators, who consisted of other coaches and all, none of them had anything but praises to say for Rich Clinchy about what a fan of the game he is, what a great coach he is, how nobody was more deserving of this. So, and we know it. You know, Rich and I have been friends now for 16 years, and he came very close a few years ago to getting this sectional. I think that was one of my first losses. But he still let me come again to future games. But so
we've been there 3 of the last 4 years. So, you know, finally the door opened.
Nice.
But, yeah.
But they're a great team. And one of the things I love is when they go out on the court at the beginning of the game is most guys just kind of stand there. Their guys all put their arms around each other for the Pledge of Allegiance. And you could tell that it's a special group of kids. I know you have a game Saturday night. Out on
tomorrow night.
Oh, tomorrow night out on Long Island.
Yeah.
So we wish you much luck. And do you know if those are on Local Live?
It's not on Local Live. It is available, but it's on the National NFHS National Federation.
I'll take the football one.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right. So
we all have the app.
yeah, we all have the app from the state champ. So
if you're already paying for it, you get it for free, but probably not worth the $11.99 to watch.
I watched the game, so I would have had it from the Somers game.
There you go.
No, but it was. But congratulations, Richard. It was fun. It was fun to watch and see what happens. So congratulations.
It's very kind of you. I do appreciate your support on this, and it's nice to be part of a group of friends that do that. You know, coaches get way too much credit and everything. It's players win. Anthony was here before, and he'll tell you the same thing. You have to have players. And players who are coachable. And it's like anything else. It's the same as what we do here in the town board. You try to get a group of people to have common goals, to sacrifice for those goals, to accommodate all the individual parts of it. But, to accomplish things, you got to get people to work together. And then at the end, hopefully you feel pride. The group feels pride. It might be a small group, maybe a large group, but you feel pride in the accomplishment that everybody works together. That's basically what life is about. And so I think that's why coaches coach, but I appreciate it very much. But I also want to say this, that the Somers basketball team was outstanding this year. The Somers High School basketball team. Tough last game, yeah, against a very good team from Tappan Zee, but it's also Coach DeCintio's final game. He's retiring. So he's such a part of Westchester basketball. If you're into that very small world of high school basketball, but he's a very large part of that small world. And they had a great season. Matt Fitzsimon is a tremendous player. He's one of the top 5 players, in my opinion, in Westchester. And I don't know if you can play 2 sports at Wesley. It's really hard to play 2 sports at any level.
Focus on football.
And he said he's going to focus on football, but I'm sure when they see him play basketball, hey, come on over here, boy. Let's go. Let's talk about that. Anyway, thank you so much, all of you, for your kindness. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And so when April comes, we'll have the answer, right? I know you're the head of section. We'll also know the winner of the March Madness.
That's right.
So
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
does anybody want to make any predictions?
I'm gonna go with Purdue, Tony, all the way.
What a shocker that is. Yeah.
Zach Edey's best friend right here.
Yeah.
7'4" Zach, and there's Bill.
Kansas.
I'm gonna guess where Bill went to school. Let me think.
No, listen, I'm rooting for on the Atlantic 10, Fordham. The head coach from Fordham, Keith Ergo, is a Somers resident.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's Somers resident. He was coach of the year this year in the Atlantic 10. So rooting for them. Hope I didn't jinx it. I didn't see it. They won today. I think they played today. So rooting for them in the Atlantic 10 and hope they get to the dance. So I'll be rooting for Fordham.
That's great.
Good stuff.
Anybody have anything else? If not,
just one.
Change the clocks back for forward for potentially the last time. The last time.
Yeah, supposedly the last time, although.
And then I'll turn this over. Happy St.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. I just got back from Ireland last week, and so looking forward to enjoying it. My son's there for the University of Galway for a semester. I think he's majoring in drinking pints, but because he's old enough over there. But so everybody have a safe and happy St. Patrick's Day. The Westchester Putnam St. Patrick's Day Parade is this weekend. I believe it's the third largest in the state. I think behind the New York City and one in Rockland. I think if it hasn't changed any, so it's good. It goes right up Route 6 down near the CVS. I wanted to say Tomcat, but the CVS.
Tomcat, remember that?
The old Tomcat, but it's good. We go every year, and it's usually fun. So it's on Sunday, which the weather should be okay. So hopefully you can all come down and support them.
Well, for St. Patty's Day, you know, Carol, she starts revving up that oven for the soda bread.
That's it.
I think she uses more electric than Arnie does.
So we appreciate that.
My stove ages in dog years. We throw the stove out every 3 years because it dies. There'll probably be about 200 loaves dispersed.
Wow.
Wow.
If one makes it up to 12 Hilltop.
There we go. We'll be there.
Right.
Okay.
Well, if nobody has anything else, I'd like to make a motion to close tonight's regular meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.